In today's video, I'm going to talk about what happens if you have a judgment entered against you and you just ignore it. My name is John Skiba, and I'm an attorney in the state of Arizona, and I help people who are dealing with serious debt problems.
Consumer warrior is on your side. The consumer warrior.
All right, let's talk about debt collection, judgments, how all that works. If you don't pay a credit card, medical bill, personal loan, that creditor may eventually file a lawsuit against you and get a judgment against you. Now, this is huge because without a judgment, there's not a whole lot they can do. But once a creditor gets a judgment, it gives them a whole bunch more power to be able to try and collect from you in many different ways. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that debt collectors will try to collect money from you once they have a judgment. And I'm going to talk about a 4th one that we don't see quite as often, but it's super important that you're aware of it. Okay, so if a judgment has been entered against you, you either went to court, you lost, sometimes you're not even aware of it. I have a whole nother video on that if you've been sued and aren't aware that you actually got sued by a creditor. And we'll put a link for it down below. But let me tell you what happens. If you have a judgment against you, it's gone through the court process, a judge has signed off on this saying that you owe a certain amount, the number one thing that debt collection law firms like to do is wage garnishment. Wage garnishment is where they get a writ of garnishment, serve it upon your employer, and then your employer is required to withhold a certain amount of money from each paycheck until that judgment is paid in full. As far as how much they actually take varies greatly depending on the state that you're in, because each state's laws are different. Now, I practice law in Arizona. Arizona garnishment laws state that a creditor can take 10% of your net wages. So 10% after all the deductions for your taxes and all that kind of stuff, they can take 10% of those net wages and apply that towards the balance. Now, one thing that's important to know about garnishment is even if the judgment's small, you do need to look and see how much interest is accruing on the judgment, because the interest continues to accrue even during the garnishment period. And sometimes in states like Arizona, where the garnishment amount is relatively small, again, 10% of the net wages, sometimes it's not even amortizing. It's something where the interest accrues faster than you're able to pay it off. So it's important to know that sometimes just sitting back and letting a garnishment kind of ride to get the things paid off, sometimes it's not a good option because it may not even be covering the interest. You let this thing go for 2 years and you're still owing as much or more than when you started. So wage garnishment is the first way that creditors try to collect on it. It's relatively easy. They do have to know where you work, but they can often get that information from your credit report, where it typically shows recent employer information. So once they file that writ of garnishment, your employer is required to start withholding it. It also makes it super hard to settle the debt once a garnishment's in place, unless you could pay something in a lump sum and get it taken care of. So if you have a judgment against you, wage garnishment's the number one thing you got to watch out for. And truthfully, that's what pushes a lot of people into bankruptcy, because really the only way to stop a wage garnishment is to file bankruptcy or to settle the debt in full to get them to stop from taking your wages. So wage garnishment is the first thing you need to look out for. Now, the second thing that most debt collection law firms will do once they have a judgment is they can do a bank levy, or what we call a non-earnings garnishment. This is where if they know where you bank, they can get a writ of garnishment and they can serve it on your bank, who then has to search through their account files and see if there's any accounts in your name. They can apply that garnishment, they put a hold on your account, and they can take any non-exempt funds. Now, it's important to note that in most states, a certain amount of money is exempt in a bank account. In Arizona, I'm recording this in 2025, it's a little over $5,000 for an individual or $10,000 for a married couple. So if you do get hit with a bank levy, it's important that you raise an objection to the court if they're trying to take money that's under that amount. Again, in Arizona, it's $5,000 for an individual or approximately $10,000 for married couples. Otherwise, if you don't have an exemption like that in your state, they can actually seize those funds, take them, and apply them towards the balance. Now, bank levy is different than a wage garnishment. Wage garnishment, they do what's called a continuing lien, where the lien continues and they keep taking the 10% from every one of your paychecks. Whereas with a bank levy, it's kind of a one-hit thing. Not only that, they don't know how much money is in your account. when they serve the writ on you. They can't call up the bank and say, hey, how much does John have in his checking account? The bank can't tell them that. So it's a little bit of a fishing expedition where they're throwing that writ of garnishment and hoping they hit it on a day when there's a large balance there that can satisfy it. So the second thing, if you have a judgment that's been entered against you, what you got to watch out for is a bank levy. They might be able to put a hold or a freeze on your account, cause all kinds of chaos. All right, the third thing that debt collectors and debt collection law firms do when they have a judgment against you is they will almost always record the judgment with the county recorder. If they record that judgment with the county recorder, it acts as a lien against any real estate that you have in that county. Now, in most jurisdictions, they're actually going to have to record a copy of the judgment in every county where you have property. So again, I'm in Arizona, I'm in Maricopa County, which is the Phoenix metro area. If you have a real estate in this county and they record it, it'll act as a lien. But if I have property and it's in Navajo County, they would have to record the judgment there. Otherwise, it wouldn't act as a lien. But if it is a lien against the property, then if you go to sell the property or refinance the property, it acts as a lien and they're going to get paid through that process. So again, there are some remedies around that. You could try to settle the debt. Alternative, you could actually file a bankruptcy, and in most circumstances, you can get that lien removed through a Chapter 7 or even a Chapter 13 bankruptcy filing. So those are the big three. Those are what we call the low-hanging fruit of debt collection. You're looking at wage garnishment, bank levy, and recording a lien against any real estate that you have in that particular county. That's how they're typically going to get paid. Now, it is possible, here's the fourth one. This one I don't see as much, but it's important to understand that it can happen, is that they can go and ask for a writ of general execution. And what this is they're saying, hey, judge, we think that John has property in the form of vehicles that are non-exempt, maybe brokerage accounts, crypto, whatever it is, some type of personal property where they want to be able to get this writ of general execution and take it and then go out and try to attach it, put a lien on things. So that way they can be able to try to collect on it that way. That way is a lot more cumbersome to the creditor. It's less likely. I don't see it a lot. I've been doing this over 22 years. I don't see that particularly in Arizona. But low-hanging fruit, the systemization that they have is wage garnishment, bank levy, and recording the lien. It's important to note, too, that judgments can last quite a long time. In Arizona, a civil judgment is good for 10 years and can be renewed every 10 years for the rest of your life. So it's something that you can't ignore. There are ways I've seen creditors where they don't do anything for 7, 8 years, and all of a sudden they hit you with a wage garnishment. At that point, the interest is ballooned up and it just causes all kinds of chaos. So the important thing to do is to take action, to be aware of what can happen if a judgment has been entered against you. You may want to look at your credit report and see what kind of information is on there. Is your employer on there? Does it show you own a home? Does it show where you bank? All of those are just a roadmap for creditors to be able to do collections. And so my recommendation, if a judgment has been entered against you, it's important to act quickly to get that thing taken care of, get it settled in the rearview mirror once and for all. Thanks for watching.
Consumer warrior is on your side. The consumer